Hello, follow on from the last video. So I was looking at Precession, the great year, the Platonic year, which is give or take, but often like a close enough number, 26,000 year cycle, or I'll be using the 25,920 because then each of the 12 ages is on average divided up into 2,160 years. But in the last video I showed how the using the 12 signs of the zodiac and the spring equinox to measure this, that it's not evenly spread. And so, for instance, some are barely touching 1,000 years, some would be going into 3,000 years of the ages. So, for instance, Virgo is quite large, but not only that, how, for instance, the white line here, that's the age of Pisces. So we're currently in the age of Pisces and moving into, like as in the song goes, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Or by some calculations we're still in Pisces. By some would say that we're in the age of Aquarius, but what we are is on, well, at the very least on the cusp of that. But you can, for instance, Pisces with the white lines and Aquarius with the blue lines, they overlap. So what you have is overlap between several ages, but also, for instance, there's a gap between Cancer and Gemini. There's a gap between Gemini and Taurus. But I spoke about the equinox. So how do they calculate this? So firstly, it was the ages are not the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which is when they speak of the equinoctial, so the equinox precession, are not divided up neatly, evenly spaced. So that's a good rule of thumb, but it doesn't quite do it justice what's actually happening. And so again, and also I mentioned the four fixed signs as it was corrected. So it's cardinal points or fixed signs. Again, I think that thanks to Sean Turner for picking up on that. But mentioned the four evangelists, for instance, in Christianity symbols. I went into that in the previous part, but if you use these four, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, and Taurus, even they, which are sort of often said to be nicely distributed to, let's just call it the four cardinal points, but the fixed, so that they're all 90 degrees from one another, doesn't quite work that way. So they will fall inside the band, but it's not as equal distribution, and even the size and them as ages vary quite significant. But for instance, Aquarius is much larger than Scorpio, for instance. But anyway, rambling now. The point was on a look. So I just got Stellarium, and the Stellarium background is always the same. So you always have, looks like a nice English field or something. But the actual location that I've set this is at Cairo. So you pretty much on the Sphinx or the pyramids. And it doesn't have to be there. Anywhere in the temperate zone, you could call it, should be the same. But I'll be dealing with the northern hemisphere, even though I'm a southern hemisphere guy, because that's what most people would be familiar with. But we're looking directly east. The location is Cairo. Again, on Stellarium, you'll always get this landscape. But I'm set at Cairo, and I'm set on the spring equinox of 2021. So that next year's spring equinox in March the 20th is the. So we're looking directly east, and what you see is the sun is rising. Now you can't sort of do this with your eyes easily, so that's why. Pardon me. Firstly, it's simple because I can just do it on the computer, but we can see the constellations in the background. So at sunrise on the spring equinox, in reality, as the sun rises, you're not going to see the stars. But here we see the sun is rising, and it's rising in Pisces. So we see one of the tethered fish there of Pisces. So as the sun rises, it's rising in Pisces on the spring equinox. So that's when they talk about precession. Again, it's arbitrary that we've set it at the northern hemisphere spring equinox. That's just sort of the way it's come to be. But in purely astronomical terms, again, that's an arbitrary man sort of made measure. But the thing of east and the constellations, they are sort of, it's the stars that matter, not the arrangement of constellations. But it is just, again, just explain if you've heard of a spring equinox precessional cycles. Sunrise, spring equinox, northern or vernal equinox, and I've set it at Cairo. 2021, it's the March 20th. Now, another important point is that the tilt of the Earth at 23.5 degrees. So the ecliptic, that's the band which all the planets rotate around the sun. They're all pretty much spot on the ecliptic, like almost like a disc. Pluto is not like that. That's why why Pluto's not considered a planet. But Saturn is tilted at 27.3 degrees. Some are tilted quite a bit. Some, for instance, I think Mercury is virtually no tilt at all. But as we go around the sun and we're rotating at 23.5 degrees from the poles of the sun. Now, this is an important feature. So, for instance, I mentioned, like again, that's the 12 signs of a zodiac. They're sort of typically described as equally spaced. That's quite not the case, but the important feature is a 23.5 degrees because the equinox precession is based on the zodiac signs. The far more important one is a precessional cycle which has to do with the North Star. So currently the North Star is Polaris, and that's the tilt of the Earth, and in essentially the same 26,000 year cycle, as the Earth rotates and the wobble shifts around, we go through different North Stars over time. So in 13,000 years it would be Vega in Lyra, and so the northern hemisphere, the North Star precessional cycle, in my opinion, is the far more important one, and that's why I believe a northern orientation of things is more important. But just to deal with that, so the Earth is tilted 23.5 or 23.4 degrees, somewhere in that band, and there is a bit of a wobble, so these things are not quite the same over time. That even sort of changes, but so that's the 23.5 degree. So Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, they're positioned 23.5 degrees south of the equator or north of the equator. So you'll notice how the Tropic of Capricorn will touch the ecliptic plane there, and on this side we see the Tropic of Cancer touches there, and Capricorn touches there. So that's why those Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, why they're located where they are. Alright, so the Earth tilt. So now it's an important feature is because, so we have, and I'll show a better picture, but Pisces is partially obscured below ground level. Keep that in mind. I'll show you a better picture in a moment. We have Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn. Not only the 12 signs of a zodiac constellation unequally sized, they're also, some are a little bit above the ecliptic, some are on the ecliptic, some are below. So Capricorn there, you'll see, will be above, but if you draw a line and keep going around, so Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, they're on the ecliptic, 23.5 degrees, so that's why they're arranged in that particular way. And so if you've got Stellarium and you play with it and just sort of run through, go hour by hour, you'll see that the movement of the stars goes along this line. At least the zodiac signs, the North Star, of course, is different. So it's fixed. It's always north. But yeah, the ecliptic. So that's what's going on. That's the angle of so that's how they move. Again, sort of back to that one. So you see the signs there. Now when the picture is here, it looks like it's horizontal. But it'll be better to show it like that, where the Earth tilt is running straight up and down. And Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn. So they see Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So that's why the zodiac signs, again, most pictures will see, and so you'll probably imagine it, that it's sort of nice and horizontal in that sense, but when you're observing them in the sky, that's the way that they move. They're moving through that angle. But the spring equinox, I've set it in Cairo. Now, I just take away the ground using Stellarium. So you can see that, the sun is rising, and now we can see Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn. Just to highlight them, Pisces, that's a Sydney Hall constellation artwork. So we see Aries, Andromeda, Pegasus. So there's Pegasus, there's Andromeda, and Aries is below ground level, so you won't see it. But where's the next one? And Aquarius. So we'll see that. But like Pisces, the two fish tethered together, and we have Aquarius. All right, so that art again, you sort of need to tilt it to get an so that this fish here is what we see there, and this fish here is what we see there. So I'll just overlay them so you get an idea. All right, next one is Aquarius. Now, constellations arts vary from person to person, depending on the artist. But again, we see Aquarius, the water bearer, holding the measuring rod, an interesting feature. But he's pouring out the water from the amphora, or different. But again, pouring out the water there. And so just to overlay it. Okay, so now I've just that's Google Earth. We're looking directly down behind the back of the Sphinx. So because the Sphinx is east now, ad Orientem, to the east is also a very standard city town plan design. Churches used to always be ad Orientem, so the front, you look out the front door, you're going to look out the east, heading towards the rising sun. Alright, so Cairo, Vernal Equinox 2021. And we're in the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. So the sun is rising there, and it's rising in Pisces, but at the very edge. And we're entering the Age of Aquarius, where for the next 3,000 years, approx, the sun will be rising in Aquarius. And as time moves along, Aquarius is going to go lower and lower and lower until it's below the horizon. And then we'll enter the Age of Capricorn. So just Pisces, Aquarius. Alright, now I've used Stellarium. I've gone back to 200 BC. And on the equinox, now we see the rising sun. Go back to the previous one. See how it's rising in, it's heading towards the end of the fish. But now 200 BC, that's where the fish is rising, and we're leaving the Age of Aries. And so Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, and go. And so around about the year 200 BC, we were in the dawning of the Age of Pisces. And so we've been in Pisces for roughly the last 2,200 years, give or take a couple centuries depending on definitions. And yeah, so dawning of the Age of Pisces. And so that's essentially what. Now, the better one would be the precession of the North Star. But when you often hear precession and precession of the Equinoxes, that's what it really means. Spring equinox, Northern Hemisphere, where you're looking directly east. On the equinox, the sun will be directly east. And where it rises, so just before sunrise, you would have seen these constellations or the stars. And you'd have to sort of track it because, again, as the sun's rising, the stars get obscured. But 200 BC, we were in the dawning of the Age of Pisces. And currently we're in the dawning of the Age of Aquarius, so to speak. So that's 2021 spring equinox, and I've set the location at Cairo. And so that's essentially what the precession of the equinoxes is about. Now the equinox, whether it's the spring equinox, Northern Hemisphere, or the it's reversed in the Southern Hemisphere. But the equinoxes, equinox equal night, nox, night, equi. So a day and night are both 12 hours long. So that is a natural thing. That's why the equinox is so good to use. It's the things are equal. That's a natural thing. It's that's a perfect way to do things. But in regards to the constellation art and how you choose to do that, that's quite a bit different, because we could rearrange some of those stars that make up Capricorn and take some of them that make up Aquarius and sort of merge them together. So you could arrange that in different ways. But that's essentially what it's about. It's about the sunrise, spring equinox, Northern Hemisphere. Now it could be the autumn equinox, but that's just how it works. Spring equinox, Northern Hemisphere. where the sun rises, what constellation will be behind it. That's what age we're in.